How is it going, everybody? It is not Thursday night, but it is still your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast coming to you this week as we head into the holiday season. We are glad you are here with us. We got some full gear action to talk about, people debuting, big shows happening with Survivor Series this weekend, and a tournament that we still don't know a whole heck of a lot about. So, folks, strap in. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now. How is it going, everybody? It's your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast, Season 3, Episode 42, as we are on the road to Thanksgiving. We may be in your ears right now as you're on the road to Grandma's house or something to that effect, or maybe on the way back, one of the two, but we wanted to make sure we had a show out before the Thanksgiving holiday since we normally record Thursday nights, 8 p.m., but we are here tonight to speak everything wrestling before the holiday goes down. So we are glad you are here with us. We have had a busy week with AEW Full Gear going down out in California this past weekend, and then we are headed to Survivor Series this coming weekend. So jam-packed with tons of stuff going on in wrestling. Good to see most of the guys here with me tonight. We got a 4-box for the first time in a while. We got Najir up on the top of the screen to my left, Giant Crab Jamal down on the bottom half, and then Damian G from the Lone Star State of Texas. How is it going, gentlemen, this evening?
Swimmingly. What's good? Happy holidays. We're not, it's not Thursday, but there's some food to be ate this week.
We're going to get our grub on for sure. Mm-hmm.
Heaping helpings of a wrestling action, supposedly.
Yeah.
And maybe some gore involved with that too, because we'll get into that in the first our first topic.
I know what.
So AEW Full Gear went down this past weekend in California on Saturday night, and interesting show in the respect that the big takeaways I seem to see from it are like there's stuff people really liked. Mm-hmm. And there's stuff people really didn't like. And in some cases, it's the exact same stuff. So kind of a divisive show, it seems. I mean, the AEW shows tend to get a lot of praise. And there's definitely stuff people love about this show. But then depending on who you're talking to, the same people might be like, you know what? I didn't think that was any good. So it's an interesting show. It's an interesting show. But I guess the big standouts to me, looking at this lineup of what went down Saturday night, it seems like the most talk is centered around the Texas Death Match with Swerve and Hangman, which definitely going into the show seemed like it had the most interest. It was the best built match. It had people really invested. So that is definitely had the most talk going in, and I think it has the most talk coming out. On the flip side of that, we also have the entire MJF title match with Jay White, which featured a show-long angle that a lot of people just do not seem to be happy about with how it was handled. Very sports entertainment-esque main event that they did with a show-long storyline for that. But that's the two parts that jumped out to me of the show. Who wants to get in here first with some thoughts on this show we got here?
Yeah, a couple of things for me. I mean, I think that's, and I could be dangerously wrong here, but I'm starting to really disconnect with the consensus of viewership, with the ratings and the vast amount of popularity in terms of what's cool, what's not cool, what's good, what's not good. I think a lot of people are starting to look into these shows in that capacity instead of what's being presented in front of them. And the first thing I want to talk about is the women. I love the fact that they struck when it was hot and put the strap on Tony Storm. It was the only decision that needed to be made, and they did it. I'm not buying into the whole thing because of her gimmick, which is good, but she's in Hollywood, so it made sense she was in Hollywood and whatnot. No, it didn't matter where it was at. It was time for her to get the belt put on her, rightfully so, not with all the other, the interim title tag to her and all those other different things that she had to go through. This was the rightful build and decision made. So for starters, on a positive note, I like that they executed, which was a well put together match, first of all, but they made the right decision in putting the strap on Toni Storm. So definitely a plus in my book on that note.
Yeah, I'll follow that up with the women's division saying, when was the last time you saw a match end on a steel-plated butt and not elbow via Lex Luger, circa, SummerSlam 92. But also putting the belt on Julia Hart. That has been a slow, steady rise. And as much as the House of Black has gotten over with certain people, she's starting to become the standout person of that group. And it's been a slow climb for her. And you know what? Statlander, in my opinion, has gotten stale. And for whatever reason, they didn't want to put the belt on Sky Blue. So they took the chance and put it on Julia Hart. And that's what this mid-tier women's title is supposed to be, building people up for the next woman up. So I will definitely say Toni did well with the women's division during this pay-per-view. The rest, can't really sign off on.
So I want to echo those sentiments and say that, putting this title on Toni Storm was the right move, especially if you have Mariah May and waiting in the wings.
Correct.
Because that's obviously the next feud, or it should be. Obviously, that's the next feud. Julia Hart was a surprise, but honestly, if not Statlander, then who? So I'm glad they took the chance on Julia to see what she does with it. She's definitely coming to her own. Even within the House of Black, I think that she's really coming to her own as a performer with gimmick and everything like that. It's unfortunate because it still feels like that she's like a member of the House of Black, but they're separated by like an invisible glass because women can only do women things and the men can only do men things, and she's out there and then sometimes she's not out there, and like make it make sense because if you got the squad ready, it doesn't matter what they are. Squad up, let's go. But that's not how it works in wrestling in America, at least. So, right.
Except for Judgment Day. But yeah, absolutely right. I say the same thing about Mia Yim. It's like when the OC was kind of operating all cylinders, like there's them. Where's her? Oh, there she is, back on the ramp back there, just
waiting for the woman to come out. So. But either way, good on Julia Hart for winning it, and it'll be interesting to see really what she does with it. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Statlander because of her evolution, her gimmick change, and now she's not an alien anymore. She's just a taxpayer from New York. Okay, and then do they move her into the next level up to the women's title division? Is it Statlander versus Toni Storm? With Mariah May waiting in the wings? We don't know, and it could be interesting to find out. And then, of course, Shida really does need any introduction. Anytime they're ready to reinsert her, she's good to go.
Great point.
I don't think she's won a TBS. Yeah, she definitely never won a TBS championship, so that could actually be something that would be good for her to do, or just do Ring of Honor, because that's a thing that still exists. I mean, there's a number of avenues, and the women's division seems to have like a foothold and a place to go and like meaningful direction to go in, which is something that we haven't said in a very long time about AEW.
Well, let me ask you something real quick, because you're laying out a blueprint as per usual. You two do, you and Will, since y'all been running wild with the show the last month or so. You lay out an idea, and it's rare that it comes to fruition. It's not because it's not smart. It's not because it shouldn't happen. It's just not in the realm of AEW's cards of recently. And you say something so simple, and I still have major questions. What does it look like for Chris Statlander to lose the TBS championship and then move to the next level? What does that transition look like? Because it hasn't been done. With Jade, they got stuck in a position where they was like, okay,
Mm.
No, not really. Because to be fair, they were waiting for Statlander to come back. Unfortunately, that was their only plan. That was their first, second, and third plan, and they which torpedoed Jade on the way down to give Statlander the belt at the bottom.
And
that
at the
was the
same
problem.
time, it felt like right, and I agree. And I would even say, even at the same time, it really seems like they didn't know what to do with Jade at all either. So now it's like, well, Statlander, do you all have a plan with her now, or what does that transition from the TBS championship, which has been the prominent women's championship of this brand for the last whatever, to now going to the main title? That looks like that's starting to catch some heat, not heat, but some momentum behind it. So what does that transition look like? That was my question to you.
All she needs to do is interrupt the Tony Storm promo, and then that sets up your title feud.
Yeah,
Or
Tony Storm is your heel champion.
An easy insertion like that. Yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they've never really established what really any division there is between the TBS and then the AEW titles. Before we just had, Jade dominating it forever. But now that whole storyline is over with, they kind of, I think we need to have some kind of establishing of like, what's the TBS level and what's the AEW world title level? And if there is any difference, what is it?
Like Punch Out, you have to have a certain amount of wins to get to the next tier, like Punch Out.
Well, yeah, I mean, they couldn't keep up with the records making sense. So there's no way in the hell they're going to be able to count to 40.
That's all long gone. Those one-loss records are long gone.
Right, but even on the men's side, there's really no division between their champions. Anybody can win any belt for any reason at any time.
Just because they feel like it.
Just because the day that ends in Y, which could be a good thing because it would be a unique thing. Like, this is the heavyweight championship. Well, why is that the most important one? Heavyweight's just a division. Right. It's not necessarily the universal championship, which is a step up. But you have the TBS championship and the TNT championship, which is definitely a step below. So there is an upswing to going to the next level and being in the heavyweight championship, consideration. However, there's really no division in their champions anyway. Orange Cassidy could absolutely be AEW heavyweight champion, but he's not a heavyweight. But I mean, so that's kind of like the logic that we're dealing with here. So that's fine. One thing about the show that I will say that I also like, because obviously the big thing is going to be Swerve versus Adam Page. That's arguably match of the night. I can't imagine what other match was better in that moment. One other thing I will say about the show though is, so they have the pre-show, and the question that I asked last week is, should they have just done Collision Sunday Night Heat style before the pay-per-view?
Right. And
they kind of did that. They just did it on the pre-show. So the pre-show, which isn't on TV, Collision would have been, if you have, YouTube or whatever, cool. If you don't, then you missed it. So that's another reason why Collision should have been on before the thing. Either way, they did the angle with Friedman and the injury and blah, blah, blah. And he obviously set up the Willis Reed spot for him to limp into the finals. Okay, cool. So you mean to tell me that they were the only other option, because we've seen interim champions before, but the only other option is to put the literal dude on crutches in the main event match, tweet that graphic and go, this is happening.
Yeah.
Give him an actual entrance to limp down to the ring, whereas Friedman, for whatever reason, steals the ambulance that he was transported in after getting taped up, comes back, hobbles down to the ring, and then wrestles for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And wins.
Why? And then wins. Okay, fine. He won that, which doesn't make sense either. But why would he be allowed to do any of this and happen? Number one, why wouldn't you just postpone the match? Number two, because there was an obvious thing that happened. He was attacked by the guns.
Right. Circumstance.
Right. Like, oh, card subject to change. Sorry, we'll have it on Wednesday. Or anything else other than he's going to steal an ambulance and walk from the ambulance in the back by the loading dock on a bad leg all the way down to the ring, pleading with officials. And Sanjay was out there. It was a whole thing. Nobody gave a shit that Adam Cole was out there. Like, yeah, no, go do your thing, boss. It looked good.
Tony was watching his WCW tapes. He was watching old Clash of Champions because they did that exact story with Sting and Rick Rude back in the day on a Clash of Champions. Except the difference was there was no, well, in the meantime, we're going to substitute this person to defend Sting's U.S. title and then being on crutches nonetheless. And then when Sting did return in the ambulance, the match was 5 minutes and he got killed. It was very quick and like he's hurt. So it did not go to a half hour. It was like 5 minutes of Sting. Sting fires up for a little bit. And then Rick Rude took him out, won the belt. And that was that.
So since Adam Cole was able to substitute for Friedman, no problem. Why wouldn't Joe do it?
That's
Joe wants the belt.
That's what everybody.
That would have made a lot more sense.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Joe wants the belt.
Realistically,
and then that's the question. If he wins the match, now the question is, I just beat Jay White for the AEW championship.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that you weren't there. I
won. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So somebody better crown me with something. I'm raising all kinds of hell. That makes more sense than Adam Cole being the worst henchman, best friend in recent memory. I mean, look, I can go on and on about the match itself and why the fact that Jay White lost to two guys with one leg.
Oh my God! Talk about like they nerfed this guy. He got signed.
They took both his knees.
Nerfed.
They made the switchblade a butter knife, and nobody wants to talk about that. But
and it's sad too because like Jay White's whole last year before even signing the AEW was really proving that he can carry the Bullet Club, and he was an elite wrestler. No pun intended. And that he should be talked about. I think when he first became the staple of the Bullet Club and became the staple of New Japan, there was a lot of speculation of could he draw like all of the previous leaders, and that was his whole crusade, from that point on, and just to do all of that, make the name for yourself, rightfully earn the check that you got. And then immediately get nerfed because if you have any bit of logic watching all of this, as
you got on the back of the line.
Yeah, it's just like what?
And when did we decide that we're gonna freebird the world title? When did the world title become a freebird title?
It's the power of friendship.
Yeah, I really
Care Bears.
I really just watch AEW with my brain off. It's not to say that it's not enjoyable and there's not amazing wrestling that's happening, but when you start getting in the weaves like this, man, your eyes start bleeding. Like, what?
Well, and here's the thing for me. This is the kind of story that I'm like, you do this on an episode of Dynamite, I got no problem with it. You do it on regular TV, it's no big deal. But when you do it on a $50 pay-per-view, and hell, like Jamal said, the angle started before the show even came on. So it's like you had 3 hours there of people being like, what the hell's going on with this main event in the back of their head? It was like this huge question mark hanging over the show.
That you saw the pre-show. Because when I was watching the pre-show on YouTube, those numbers were not above 2-3 million.
Yeah.
So
I think we gotta have a talk about VPNs because I got questions. I meant to bring this up to you all, but I think people ain't letting free go. For people ain't going to pass up on the opportunity for free, but I do agree the YouTube numbers look strangely low, and I'm like, I wonder if there's another source of viewer.
But even if they were strangely low, if we're talking about a buy rate of several 100,000 in the US, then where are these people watching the pre-show on YouTube? And obviously that doesn't count people watching in the movie theater. That doesn't count people watching on Fight TV, which is also carries the pre-show as well. But the numbers don't add up. So which is another reason if you're going to do a Saturday show to put Collision on, at least in America, because I don't think Collision airs in Canada. On TV. But the point is that
and Jamal, like this is what the UFC is. It's been a while since I watched the entire night of the UFC, but this is what they used to do, where they would do they'll have the pay-per-view obviously on pay-per-view.
They'll have things on ESPN, right?
Yeah, they'll have a free on the app, I think it was, and then one on ESPN. But there was 3 different tiers of watching the shows, like the 6 to 7.
You want to cover your bases.
7 to 8, and then the 9 to pay-per-view. So like, the model is there,
No, but like you want to cover your bases. You want to reach fans wherever they are. You can't just assume that people have anything. And I don't care what you are, market. You have to put the word out that the thing is happening.
Yeah, logistically, it makes sense too. So you can't be that desperate for money to say we need to sell tickets the day before. Why not capitalize off it? I think logistically and viewership wise, I think you do a McDouble on that day.
And this is the thing. Considering the angle and what we know about the angle, I think it would hold more weight if the last thing you saw on Collision on cable TV was the spot with Friedman and Adam Cole as Friedman is loading to the
make you want to buy it.
It makes you right.
What's going to happen next? Exactly.
I mean, it's literally 2 minutes before that's the final shot.
Yeah.
Seeing that on YouTube or seeing that on TNT gives the thing a little bit of more sizzle to it because now I need to know.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. And I'm not going to shame our source of viewership too with YouTube and Twitch, but people don't take YouTube legitimate for programming when it comes down to sports. Like it's just not a big thing. I mean, yes, the Sunday Ticket's on YouTube, but everybody turned the blind eye to that and say like
YouTube TV though, right?
Oh, that I mean,
right. No, I'm saying, but like YouTube TV is a cable company for whatever.
What about YouTube Red? What about YouTube Red? What happened to that? Oh yeah, because it was a thing that was there, and in the blink of an eye, completely gone. I just think that,
people have been throwing stuff at the wall since COVID, and to see what it's going to be.
This is true.
And we know that Warner Brothers is several $1 million in the hole because of it. But the point is that if you're trying to create engagement, you're trying to create, and we've been talking about this over the last 3 to 4 months about the growth of AEW and how we're not seeing the growth. And you have these things. This is the pay-per-view, the last second before the pay-per-view. Damn the go-home show. This is the go-home minute. And the last thing you see is not on TV, it's on YouTube. I mean, it could be on both. I don't care if Collision airs live on YouTube and what's the name? I don't, it makes no difference to me. On Twitch or Kick or OnlyFans, I don't care where you put it. But the point is that
I just think the optics of it, people just don't respect in the way they do, because when Impact ran on these platforms, people didn't tune into it still. They still didn't, because the whole argument was get a TV deal and then we'll start watching it. So to me, I think your first measure of trying to draw viewership is use your legitimate television package or deal. Right. Run it through that way, throw an hour on YouTube, throw 2 hours on What's the Face, and then go into the pay-per-view. It literally feels more legitimate that way to me.
But oops. So that's kind of the thing. So I mean, just overall for the pay-per-view itself, and I think the Swerve Adam Page match is great match. Fine. The women's matches, I'm glad that it happened the way that it did. Everything else, I could kind of leave.
That's where I was at. Totally.
That's also the thing too. When you have a pay-per-view that's long, I don't think it ends at like 11:30 something.
Yeah, that's when it usually ends.
Which is where it usually ends.
11:30 to midnight, right around in there.
Exactly. So if we're doing that, a couple of the matches that need to be on the pay-per-view, they could have been on the show before.
Yeah.
And instead of that, they put in some filler matches instead of matches that are actually engaging to the show itself. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing that they do, where it's just like more isn't always more.
Can we talk about two really important things? Obviously, one's the signing, but can we talk about the matches I didn't care about? Like the Golden Jets won. The Golden Jets versus Big Bill and Ricky Starks is your next AEW Tag Team Championship match that we know exactly.
There's a reason why nobody's talking about that.
Because nobody cares.
But beyond that's being set up, that just literally makes me sick in my mouth, is another nerf. Ricky Starks, who you one moment was like, oh, they are ready to go. And then they send my man, I don't know, purgatory, if you ask me. I like, granted, yes, he got a championship, but like, were we not just talking about maybe a month or two ago just how he's the next one up? When you talk about the pillar,
he was, until he eviscerated Freeman on a promo. He bit the hand. You can't bite the hand.
Cody gonna make a call to him very soon. His other,
I hope
friend,
so.
Oh, I hope so. I'm
hope so.
waiting for that.
I hope so.
Dude is gonna thrive crazy.
He's
in
more
WWE.
than ready. He just needs the opportunity.
Yeah.
The platform is all that's missing. The platform and the TV time. That's all that's missing at this point.
Yes, I mean that really is it. So now this is the big question, probably the final question on this. We talked about Cody. Mentioned that Cody may be calling Mr. Starks, as he should. Friedman, his contract is up in January. That's what the rumor is. Does he stay or does he go?
They said there's rumors saying that he's already resigned, and also I'm not interested in even speculating.
I'm with you on that. With that rumor, that it's. I don't think they're doing this much with him if he's not already locked in. That's my thought.
Yeah.
Hell, he's the champ. He's the damn. Everything's built around him right now. All this Adam Cole stuff and everything. So,
but here's the thing, though, and this is the only reason why I push back on that is because now that you've given him everything, what more can you give him that WWE can't?
That is true.
They've blown the load. So the only thing that WWE can give him, which money can't buy, is international exposure
or WWE lack of interest in him. So
that's a different. That's a reason why WWE wouldn't be interested. But I'm saying that if you are Friedman and you're willing to test free agency, this may be why you would want to do it, because of the fact that AEW has given me literally everything that they can muster. And it doesn't compare to what WWE could give me.
Well, also, if you're Friedman, a shiny new toy has just been signed there. And we know how Tony is with his shiny new toys.
Mm-hmm.
They have his attention for a month or so. Well, I'm saying they have his attention for a month or so.
He's going to go on the show for Ty Valkyrie.
Yeah, it all depends. The shiny new toys get that attention at first, though. It's just a matter of if he gets bored of them real quick. But given who it is, I don't think he's going to be getting bored of him. I think the only thing that takes Ospreay out of the equation if there's an injury. Because this is the kind of guy Tony's like going to salivate over, in my opinion.
I have like a lot of opinions about this. One, Disney and Pixar need to watch AEW and just rip the script from this, because this is truly the next the next version or the next iteration of Toy Story, because that's what it is. You get your new toy, you play for a little while, you throw it away.
I don't want to play with you anymore. Yeah,
I won't play with you anymore. Rex comes and destroys you. The same old rigmarole every single time. The Ospreay deal is so interesting to me, and I commend him for getting the deal, because I think this is the only way that you sign AEW, knowing that I felt is the one who truly did have the attention across the world. I think MJF is doing what everybody should do who's trying to get a new job, is you got to know your current employer that other people are interested in you to raise your own stock. It's just kind of how it is. You got to throw out the fillers like, oh, they're looking at me, but I don't really think that WWE is interested in him. Not that I have any sources and not that I can back anything with it, but after a while, I think you kind of look and say, does he truly fit their brand? Is it a risk? Because at the end of the day, when you think about somebody who's in WWE, you say, who's your next John Cena? Who's going to carry this brand for 20 plus years? That's going to do all the good things in the ring, out of the ring, which Max has started to show that he's not just this heel in the ring. But again, can you risk, by the way he's been sort of running this championship reign right now, can you risk that being the face of your company? How does he blend in with the other folks in the locker room? Can you sit him down for a little while to build him up, or is he going to instantly expect to be in the top picture without there being friction, without ruffling all the other feathers of everybody that's going to be there? Those are like the questions you worry about. Because you look at Jade. We knew Jade wasn't WWE ready, but she's definitely superstar ready, and she's been humble about it. Yep. But can you do that to somebody like an MJF? Can you say NXT for a little bit while we get you ready, or keep you on the bench a little bit while you're ready? So I think he's blowing smoke to obviously raise his stock, and I think he's signed. So I think that deal is done. But I think Ospreay legitimately had attention from everybody. And as I said in our chat, I think Ospreay got the AEW Impact deal, where
can you explain that to those who may not know what that is?
Truly, when it's time for you to work your shows, you're here. Other than that, go get your bread any and every place that you want to. So with that being said, if you looked at the terms of his deal, he can still work New Japan, so it doesn't make him exclusive to AEW. So cool, he does everything he does there. He can still work indies as well too. So he's also not unique to AEW or New
He's
Japan.
still living in London. He ain't moving
Yep.
over here. They letting him stay overseas.
So to me, do we aesthetically see anything different than what we have already seen for a guy who's already been making appearances? No. So I commend him for having his best life with more money now. Good for him.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that he that this deal was worthy of the build-up that Khan gave it? Because everybody was thinking it was everybody else but him, because we've seen Ospreay before. We've seen him, we know who he is. So now that he's official, is kind of, I guess, is a bit of a letdown unless you're a major fan of him. Then I don't know what changes, basically.
And I think that's it, Jamal. You just hit it. It's unless you're a major fan of the guy, that's who you're going to salivate over. But I guess a lot of, let's say, the casual fan or people who aren't really fans of Ospreay are kind of okay. And we're used to Tony doing this by now. He always hypes up these reveals, and then we're kind of left with, okay, that's it. Like that, but that's how I felt. Like, even if I was in the crowd, but when I saw the reaction, seemed like a typical, hey, look at the new toy. Like we just said.
Like we said last week, he'd been on the Wembley show already. So
Correct.
It's like we've seen,
like he had never been in a ring there.
Seen in AEW before,
Last thing I'll say is that he's a phenomenal wrestler. And when you look at the tapes, you say there's Ricochet, there's Ospreay.
Correct.
Dime a dozen there. So stalemate. But then you hear folks start saying stuff like, well, it's a big signing. Well, sure, Tony Khan, you negotiated a deal that kept him away from signing WWE and New Japan. So good for you. You did what you were supposed to do on that note as the booker and the owner and whatnot. So definitely a big deal to him, which I'm sure was probably one of the toughest deals for him, since he actually had somebody who had legitimate interest from other companies and whatnot. But at the end of the day, when you talk about big signings, in my eyes, it's always supersedes wrestling. Is this person the face of your company? Is he the face of your brand? And then, since we're always throwing out Warner Brothers and Warner Brothers Discovery out there in every other sentence, do they look at him and say, oh God, yes, we can't wait to throw him on Rick and Morty, Barbie, I don't know. What else is out there? Anything. Is he our guy? Well, that's for you to determine.
And that's the thing too, because I know you'll probably get into it later if you haven't already, but that's why I thought the Ronda signing was going to be the bigger deal. And then you debut her on Ring of Honor. And if you're Max and all that other stuff, HBO Max, wouldn't Ronda Rousey be the bigger get than Ospreay on a macro and micro level? So no,
7 days a week.
Played this
7 days a week, a bigger deal. 7 days a week.
I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
All right. Well, I think that's enough AEW for this week, because Lord knows last week's show was all AEW. So we are going to hit our halftime break. When we come back, we will have the indie spotlight, and then we will shift gears because Survivor Series War Games is this weekend. So we got to talk about what's going down with War Games and folks going on in WWE, because people are returning there too. And who knows who else might be showing up in Chicago this weekend. So stay with us, folks. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
Are you a fan of all things media? Are you a fan of professional wrestling and sports? Then you need to check out Big Gold Belt Media. We're the ultimate destination for all things entertainment and media, with the latest news, interviews, and analysis from the world of the aforementioned entertainment realm. Our team of dedicated journalists and analysts will bring you exclusive content that you're not going to find anywhere else. And we're not just an online destination. We attend live events, conventions, bringing you behind-the-scenes access and exclusive content that you're not going to find anywhere else. Plus, you can show your support for our brand by subscribing to our Patreon, patreon.com/BigGoldBelt. Join the Big Gold Belt Media community today and stay ahead of the game. Follow all our social media platforms at Big Gold Belt for the latest updates and exclusive content. Whether you're a diehard wrestling, sports, nerd culture fan, or just a casual like some people, Big Gold Belt Media has everything you're going to need to stay informed and entertained. So what are you waiting for? Check us out today at biggoldbelt.com. That's biggoldbelt.com.
Welcome back, folks. And after the break, we always like to check out what's going on with the indies. So here is Giant Crab with this week's Big Gold Belt podcast, Indie Wrestling Spotlight.
Yep. So this week, let's talk about Norfolk, down there in southeastern Virginia. It's the VCW, who we're at the show recently. Their first show up in Alexandria, but they're doing their next show December 2nd. It's a Saturday at the Norfolk Masonic Temple. That's 7001 Granby Street in Norfolk. That's a bit north of downtown. It's a VCW Titans of Destruction. You can get your tickets at vcwprowrestling.com/tickets, or you can check them out on Twitter at VCW Pro Wrestling as well. Tickets start at $30 for the front row. Every ringside is $25 and GA is $20. You can get your tickets vcwprowrestling.com/tickets. One thing to note about VCW right now, they have a new champion. So it's an interesting time to see where that goes. There was a title change at the last show in Alexandria. So definitely looking forward to seeing what happens there. So you can get your tickets online. Doors open at 6:30. Show starts at 7:30 down in Norfolk for Titans of Destruction, December the 2nd. That is on a Saturday, Norfolk Masonic Temple in Norfolk, Virginia. And that's the Indie Spotlight for this week.
Awesome. VCW put on a good show up here. So curious to see how they close out their year and where they're headed for 2024, because they got some good shows going on there.
Yeah, so. Joe Keys is a champion in 2023. Hot damn.
Who would have thought?
There
we go. Who would have thought? All right, folks. This weekend, we go to War Survivor Series weekend. The second time they are having War Games with the main stars of WWE, which means one thing that I really like, this is a very tight show. There are 5 matches on this. War Games is going to take a little bit of time, and we got 2 of them. So to run down the card really quick, we have Gunther versus The Miz for the Intercontinental title, which had a hell of a little bit of a build last night on Raw, where they are, I like what they're doing here, because they're making The Miz into like the underdog, sympathetic, almost baby face against the monster that's Gunther, and playing up that,
reawakening the Miz of old times. Oh, silly Celis, wish he could be here to celebrate.
Celis would have some things to say about this for sure if he was here. That is for sure. We have the women's title for Raw, Rhea Ripley against Zoe Stark, and then the LWO exploding with Santos Escobar and Carlito in the other singles match on the show. But of course, it's Survivor Series War Games, so it's all about War Games. So first we have the women, which is going to be a 4-on-4. Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch taking on Damage Control of Bayley, Asuka, Io Sky, and the returning Kairi Sane. And then on the other side of the equation, we have the men, which will be 5-on-5 with Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and now officially after last night, the returning Randy Orton rounding out their team against the Judgment Day. So Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough, and they also have Drew McIntyre with them rounding out their side because he wants to get his hands on Jey Uso. And it's all about him and Jey Uso right now. So a very tight card here going down in Chicago, which of course leaves it Chicago. Who knows what else might happen there? But clearly they wanted to make it clear that if something else is going to happen, it will not involve the main event. Randy Orton is confirmed after last night for the main event, which I think was a smart move. Get that out of the way so people aren't thinking like, oh, that who's going to show up in the main event. I mean, that's off the table. So I like that they did that. I like that they did that. So
yeah,
I don't know. Thoughts on Survivor Series this weekend? Thoughts on War Games?
A couple of things for me too. Randy Orton, smart choice. You want to get back on the roster as soon as possible. We don't really know the tension between Seth Rollins and CM Punk, so them being on the same team probably isn't best for business. So cool if that's the thing. But I also, I guess my real big question is, has the women's always been 4-on-4, or did it just couldn't?
It's always been 5-on-5 in WWE. Now, back in the day in WCW, they would do 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, just depending on what story they were telling. So there's been 4-on-4 War Games before, but everyone in WWE up to this point has been 5-on-5.
I'm just confused. Why? I mean, I know Dakota Kai is hurt, so to me, it's like
it might be as simple as that because of her injury, they just didn't want to have to shoehorn someone else into each side to make it fit.
And they made it work on the men's side. So I'm like, I know they can do it on the women's side. I mean, Dakota Kai calling her best friend. I mean, you have Tegan Knox right there, whether she's a heel or face. I think you can work. Bailey can easily solicit the service of anybody just because of just how good she is. And then you get to throw somebody else on the other side, which I thought, I mean, I'm still lobbying out for Jade for the Royal Rumble, but I'm like, that would have been more interesting as well, too, to have the other side, have them have a mystery person and speculate who it could be.
I guess
and you throw
unless
in
they
Jade.
add something on SmackDown at the last minute, but this past week they made it sound pretty definite that these are the teams. Which seem to be the story of the week. So,
because I think like you want to keep damage control strong, but like on the other end, you got nothing but champions. That's a stat squad on any given day. But you throw in somebody like Jade, game changer, Bianca and Jade working together, which may not be a thing for a long time, but you get it here. And then you get Charlotte and Jade on the same team, which easily is the feud you want to run down the line at some point. So you have them have tension the entire match. And it's a match that fairly should keep Jade pretty safe because you don't work a whole Survivor Series War Games match. So you don't have her do too much. You don't have to work the cameras properly there because, well, it's 2 rings. It's just I think it's a lot of quick experience and easily something that the fans in Chicago would just eat up. But that's just my thoughts. But yeah, nonetheless, 4-on-4, I definitely was like, wait, there's got to be somebody else, right? Isn't it usually 5-on-5? So we'll see if they do something on the last match, the last SmackDown go home show.
Yeah, I thought 4-4 was a mistake, and they were going to wait to add somebody. But if that is what it is, then that can work. It's not like it's anything less than that doesn't make sense. Just do a tag match, but that's fine. I like the fact that it's only 5 matches, but I guess the big question is, do we think that War Games should only exist on the main roster or NXT? Is it possible to do the match on both shows in the same year, or is that overkill? Because honestly, it's not like NXT shouldn't have the match.
Yeah,
It's overkill because Survivor Series was the one of the big 5 that struggled the most. The one that we just like.
It needed this kick in the butt last year of adding War Games as something special to it. I would say this. I think you could do it on both. But if you're going to do it on both, it needs to be only 1 War Games on Survivor Series and 1 War Games on NXT, and not we're doing it for the women and the men both. You got to do it down to like we're doing 2, no more than 2 a year. So I don't know. That's my thought. Any more than that, just because do it 2 in one night, I think is a bit much as it is,
Right. But I also think that if you're going to do it in NXT, it should be like earlier in the year. If Survivor Series War Games is the thing,
it's got to be like far away.
I don't have a problem with March being the War Games event, for NXT. But as far as the match goes, never been into Orton, so it'll be interesting to see how he looks when he comes back. I'm waiting for Cody to finish the story basically, but I'll be waiting for that for a while. Gunther versus The Miz is interesting. Rhea Ripley versus Joey Stark is fun. Carlito versus Santos. I'm not going to say it's going to steal the show, but it's actually the match that I'm looking forward to most. But I think it should be like a solid pay-per-view for a Survivor Series. That's actually pretty good because Survivor Series is, per what you just said, it has been lacking past few years.
Yeah.
All right, any other thoughts on Survivor Series? Wait, let's address the elephant in the room. Folks in Chicago, I'm sure there's gonna be chants. And I guess the carrot they've been dangling is Shinsuke Nakamura has been waiting for a challenge. And they've been hyping this for weeks. He's been taking people on Raw, and they made sure he cut the promo again this week that he has been waiting for a challenge. Are they gonna have something with Nakamura and our friend from Chicago be the one to answer it on Saturday? You think he's coming? I would
like to see Nakamura versus Colt Cabana, but I'm not entirely sure that that's the match that the crowd needs.
Oh no, that sounds like something that would have been on ROH TV back in the day.
That's
one in the morning nights.
Yeah. Oh, I missed the MASH, the ROH after MASH. What a time to be alive. True
2:07
faithful.
in the morning.
I feel like I should have like a legacy Ring of Honor. What's it called? Because I don't even know what it's called at this point.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, Jay Lethal owes me a knee brace.
All right, 2 Chainz, is he gonna be there? You think he's showing up in Chicago?
It will say a lot about the company. It will.
New ownership now, so it's a whole different ball game. We gotta remember.
And honestly, to me, it's just like, do you take the risk? But if they take the risk, it's like, damn, they took the risk. So I would just be blown away. I think it.
No.
I think, and I guess the real question, if he does show up, to what impact does it feel? Does it feel like Cody when he came back to WWE, or like, let's just go back to when the Hardys returned, or when Jade signed? Like, to what level would you say this signing would be if they get it done? And in Chicago, the perfect storm.
In Chicago, I'd say it would be like Cody showing up at WrestleMania. And it'd be similar in the respect that anyone knew Cody was coming. So the folks in Chicago are going to be chomping at the bit for it. So
I'll say this. In general, if let's say the CM Punk comes out, the crowd has a reaction because they're going to have a reaction. If he comes out and he's given a live microphone and he buries AEW for 15 minutes, that's where the internet's going to melt down.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that people are clamoring for him to wrestle. I don't think people are clamoring for him to just take over WWE. We saw what that looked like in AEW. And, no matter what side you're on in his saga, it was a clusterfuck. So, granted, that's a gross oversimplification. I don't think WWE needs CM Punk. They've tried him in different avenues as a commentator for the Fox show. They don't need him to wrestle anymore, because they have a ton of legends that they can call up for no reason. I think we'll see Lex Luger in the ring before we see CM Punk in WWE.
And I mean, the biggest thing about all of this is contracts are being written much more strategical now. So you're not getting the Vince McMahon option A or option B. You're definitely going to have some language written in there, talk about your incentives if you are able to do this, and if not. And I mean, again, you got lawyers at the TKO level that's going to be looking at this. Obviously cross-referencing with contracts in the UFC.
That's
just
also a thing too. If you're Endeavor, why waste the money that you don't have?
I mean, because
it's not like they've been catching fire since the merger.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. From a wrestling fan perspective, for those that care about the crowd going off and the big pop and the whatever. If you care about that, then sure, whatever. But even if he does, where does he fit in? Does he fit into a War Games scenario where they're insert into the match? Does he fit in with Carlito versus Santos? Does he fit in with?
It's Nakamura is the only thing that they got going on. It feels like.
Do they? Right. So so do we need a 20-minute CM Punk match out of nowhere? I mean, like realistically, and I don't know what Raw is on Monday either. Because if it's in the area, if it's in Chicago as well, then maybe. But I just don't see where he fits in now.
Maybe he's not an active performer for long. I think he has value backstage. I definitely think, regardless of what happened at AEW, and him and AEW isn't just a him fault. That's the biggest thing that we need to realize, that he definitely did some things that were, I say, to against the culture that you want in your locker room. But Jungle Boy is also suspended too because of his actions. And I think at a certain point, you keep poking people, you're going to get clapbacks. And the Bucks,
there's enough fault to go around with everyone with the way that entire tenure was handled.
So we added up to a clusterfuck.
So for anybody that's to forget, I don't know who podcast I was listening to, but somebody was saying that fans are still uncertain about their stance on the Young Bucks, which is BS. They like them. There's never a question of if they do or do not like them. CM Punk caught the bad end of this entire ordeal more than anybody. The Bucks are good. Omega's good. I don't know, what's his name? Steele, whatever his name is. He got nothing out of it. It was all put on Punk because it was just easy to put it on him, because you can easily say, oh, that guy has a culture or a history of this, and that. So that easily makes it his fault. It's not true. So I think if you WWE, you take a look at it and you evaluate across the board, you write the contract in a way that protects them, but you give him a go because he clearly brings in numbers. He will easily push merch. That you know they love that. And at the end of the day, I also think another benefit to having Punk is Punk also has a celebrity. Let's not forget that my man was on television. He was on Heels. He had like a couple of movies. So considering that WWE also has that branch of their of the business where the entertainment side of it, there's value of that too. So, and then do you draw his wife back by bringing him back in, who is easily somebody you want in your locker room? Easily. And the merch she can move is just on another level. So I think there's great benefit because he, at the end of the day, is a WWE guy. And I think as long as they write the contract right, give him a few matches, then put him backstage to do something beneficial, I think it'd be good. I don't think he wants to wrestle forever and ever.
No.
I can see him being a match producer.
And honestly, looking at it this way, the number one, if he shows up on Saturday, I don't think anyone's really interested in seeing him wrestle. They want to see him with a live mic. Everyone wants to hear what he has to say. That's what folks are curious about.
Him and Nakamura is a dream match, though. Him and Nakamura is a dream match. And I mean, why he couldn't get his Tanahashi match, this has to be up there.
Well, you know what? Probably what they would do, knowing them, shows up on Saturday, wrestles Nakamura, then at the end it's basically be like, I got something to say tomorrow night. And you leave it open and you do it on Raw. To draw the rating on Raw.
They give him the Cody World Tour. Cody has something to say every week.
All right. I mean, I wasn't interested in seeing him wrestle in AEW. I ain't really interested in seeing him wrestle in WWE either. But I will say this: if he comes out, I want to hear that damn in living color. I want to bring back the Fire Burns. I want to hear Fire Burns brought back for the return. Bring back that theme. There's a little curveball in there, but yeah. All right, we'll see. We will see what happens on Saturday. All right, so last week we talked about this, the Continental Classic, the big round robin tournament that AEW is putting together. And one of the big things we talked about involving it was how we just didn't have a lot of info. At the time, all we knew was Daniel Bryan's going to be in it. It's wrapping up at the end of the year at the World's End pay-per-view, and it's going to start this Wednesday. Well, here we are after Full Gear. We got, I think, 2 more entrants in it, Andrade and somebody else, I think.
Ed Kingston.
That's right. That's right, because that plays into this too now. So we know 3 of the dozen people in it. There's going to be 9 more. It's starting tomorrow night. And now, apparently, the only other thing that's really been added to it is that because Eddie Kingston's in it, apparently this will be unifying the Ring of Honor title, the New Japan Strong title that Eddie Kingston has, and apparently creating the Continental Classic title from this tournament. It's going to create a triple crown in this thing. What is going on here? I am so baffled by this tournament, and we're like 24 hours away now from it happening.
I really don't know. And that's also a thing, too. We don't know the other participants. I think that there's 12 total, and we only know 4 so far. We know what the rules and format's going to be, and 2 blocks of 6 wrestlers. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Points and all that good stuff. Cool. Why wouldn't you have the participants unveiling on the pre-show of the pay-per-view?
Yeah, they're literally
another reason why the pay-per-view should have been Collision. I mean, the pre-show should have been Collision because this is an important thing that you want the most people to see, the participants of this tournament. And then you can have this Election Sunday groupings, on Dynamite, the Dynamite before, or whatever it is. So it doesn't really makes sense that it's going to lead to a lot of confusion for people that don't diehard keep up with AEW. As far as the other 8 people that are going to be in it, it's not just the who, it's the where do they match up. What's the brackets look like? What's the
who's in what block?
The blocks, what the blocks look like. And this is going to go on for the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, all December.
Yeah, all the way to the end of the year in Long Island.
Terrible.
And to create a new belt. Now, you have Ring of Honor, you have New Japan, and both of them are teaming up like Voltron to create an AEW belt.
Well, listen,
the AEW Triple Crown.
This is exactly why I just stay off of all of the social media stuff and I just peep in at times. I don't know why people are so surprised about the handling of New Japan of Ring of Honor. I said it a long time ago. I'll say it again, that New Japan was literally like anybody who's out there who's ever built a car. You got your car, and sometimes you need parts from the junkyard, and you see a whole body, no motor, no trans, but it's a whole bunch of other parts on there that you need. So you're like, nah, I'm gonna get that whole. Let me get that whole shell, and you just pick off the parts, and then now your car that you hooked up, all good, all ready to go, but that shell is good as done. It's literally what Ring of Honor has been, was that we're going to buy this, take what we want from it, use the notoriety of it, and other than that, it is as good as gone. I don't want to hear this trying to pitch it to the network. It has no value at this point. It would have been a done deal then. And at this point now, even with folks like Athena, who's going crazy on there, who's obviously should be talked about, is one of the best wrestlers of this year, and it's still treated as a third world promotion. This is another example of just, if you really want to build a legitimacy of it, merching the belts is not the way to go here. I don't see the benefit for Ring of Honor here at all. And New Japan is willing to be in bed with anybody to get attention. So this is right on par for them.
Yeah. And it would be different if it weren't the Ring of Honor championship.
It's the belt, not the TV
the
title.
belt.
Yeah, not the pure championship, the main title.
It's the Ring of Honor belt.
Where's Jonathan Gresham at? I was like, I just need 10 minutes with this guy. Like, I got questions. Like, I just got questions.
And never even mind that, like, this all got announced like by Tony at like the media scrum. Just like, oh, by the way, this is what we're doing. By the way.
So they're taking the biggest belt in Ring of Honor, fusing it with duct tape and chewing gum, and making that into a different belt.
Yeah.
So not the Ring of Honor television champion, it's the big belt.
Yeah.
The big silver belt.
Mm-hmm.
Where will it be defended?
Where's Kerry Silky at? Got questions.
Probably all over, I'm guessing, because the New Japan part, which is going to be like, it's a triple crown between ROH, AEW, and New Japan, so it can be defended on any of the shows. But they do that anyway, so
they took the top belt. They didn't even take the top belt in New Japan Strong.
The New Japan Strong COVID era title is what they're doing. It's like,
all I know one thing, they better I don't got no comments.
And this is the thing. Okay, so Kingston is defending both the strong open weight and the ROH championship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that could be interesting because of the fact that Kingston could still defend those other two belts independently and lose one of them, which doesn't make sense as a stipulation, because why would he make that stipulation if he's not going to keep it for the duration? But since we're wrapping up on time, I'll make it quick. The long and short of it is that this is what you get for making Eddie Kingston the champion. This is what your dumbasses get for making Eddie Kingston the double champion. Yeah, I said it. Also, more importantly than all of that, why is New Japan so desperate to lose a belt? AEW makes belts all the time. It doesn't matter to them. They're a belt-making company that just happens to wrestle. And then you take the biggest belt in Ring of Honor, and then you give it to Kingston, who's going to defend it. What if he loses? He's either going to win the championship and have his belt taken, have both his belts taken, and given one belt, or he's going to lose both belts and then not have the other belts mean anything.
Oh my goodness!
This selection special tomorrow needs to explain so damn much of what the hell is going on with this. Is his belt on the line in every match he's in?
Yes. Yes.
So if he loses his
said.
second matchup, then that person becomes the champion right there, and then they can lose it to somebody else.
Yes.
So all throughout the tournament, it could be passed around 4 or 5 times. All right.
No. I mean, my understanding is he said that he would defend the belt in every match that he has. So assuming that he loses a match, and of course it's not single elimination.
It's round robin.
It's round robin, which means that he's going to wrestle regardless over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah. Everyone's got 5 matches.
But just because he loses the belt once doesn't mean that the new champion has to uphold that stipulation. That's something that Kingston dumbass said.
and folks, Tony's already thrown a little temper tantrum and made a big deal about how there will be no outside interference in this. This is going to be pure sporting competition. So that means winners and losers. So,
right. So either Eddie Kingston's winning the Continental Classic and getting a new belt,
going on a streak the whole way through.
He's going to win for 6 straight weeks. Global warming is real. Just so you understand, this is what climate change looks like. This is the world we live in now, where Eddie Kingston is a double champion who's about to go on a 6-week reign of terror to get an inaugural belt. That's how we want to start 2024.
I feel like sick hearing this right now. It's not against Eddie Kingston. It's like the
Here's
lack
the last
of logic
thing I'm
right
waiting
now
to
is
see
making
tomorrow.
me sick.
Is the last thing I'm waiting to see tomorrow when they announce these people who are going to be the scrubs they're going to put in to eat losses, because it begins round robin and they said no interference. It can't be a dozen damn stars. They got to throw.
It's going to be Serpentico.
Serpentico. Colt Cabana you mentioned earlier.
It's going to be some New Japan Strong folks playing tribute for positions.
Who's going 1 and 5 in this? Who's going to have
Which
that
is
1 and 5
another reason
run?
why it doesn't make sense that Ospreay is the big guy you said. Well, you could just put his ass in the tournament.
Yeah.
So,
all
right.
Are there any matches for Dynamite announced?
They've announced some other stuff. Nothing.
Okay.
There's going to be stuff for this tournament, but I think until the selection special happens tomorrow at 1 p.m., wait to that last minute to get this thing.
1 o'clock?
Yes. So it's
okay.
On YouTube again.
Okay. So listen. Here's put an exclamation point on this. As we record this show this Tuesday, November 21st, we hope that everybody has an amazing holiday week. Do your Black Friday shopping safely online is suggested. Do it now. You know,
sales already started.
Yes, they've set up all the safety protocols so no one gets trampled by trying to get them a Toshiba 42-inch for $50 that's going to break in 50 days. So have fun, be with your family, all that good stuff. And we'll obviously be back next week. Big thing I want to quickly say is next week, we're finally getting our collective chance to check out the Iron Claw. So with that, we'll have that review probably next week too. I'm not sure when the embargo is, but we are going to see the DC premiere of that collectively as a group. So stay tuned.
We'll at least
for our
be able to
coverage
give general thoughts next week.
Yeah, definitely that for sure. I'm not sure when the embargo is, but we'll obviously the review will be on the way too, and some other coverage for it. So the strike has been resolved, so the interviews are back on the way. So definitely expect to see a bunch of other stuff as well. But yeah, the Iron Claw A23. With Zac Efron and some other folks, the Von Erich story. We cannot wait to check that out. So we'll have that for you all next week. So look for a review, look for some reactions. We'll talk about on the podcast. And I think that's it for announcements.
That sounds about right.
So without further ado, Will, take us home, sir.
There you go. All right, folks. Happy Thanksgiving. if you're in that part of the world that has Thanksgiving. Otherwise, it's normal Thursday for y'all. But we will be back next Thursday night, 8 p.m. in our normal time slot, talking the weekend wrestling. In the meantime, on social media, it's at Big Gold Belt on all your various platforms. And, of course, BigGoldBelt.com, wrestling, movies, comics, and more for all your entertainment and wrestling news while you're enjoying this holiday season. Folks, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next Thursday night.